And I'd like to welcome everybody for participating today in today's meeting. I welcome all of our board members, our community involvement, shareholders, and last but certainly not least, our staff are doing an amazing job. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Time is 10:03.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman. Director Emerson. Director Odell. Director Stone. Present. Director Lockett. Director Adams.
Present.
Director Robinson.
Present.
Director Leggett.
Present.
Director Taylor.
Present.
Chairman Cody.
Present.
Chairman, you have a forum of the board this morning.
Thank you, Madam. This time, I'd like to move on to the approval of today's agenda, August 23rd, 2022. I'd like to get a motion in a second.
I move.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Director Emerson, not present. Director Odell, not present. Director Stone.
Yes.
Director Lockett, not present. Director Adams.
Yes.
Director Robinson.
Yes.
Director Leggett.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yeah.
Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Motion passed for today, for the approval of today's agenda.
All right, thank you. And a note that Director Lockett is from the board.
Thank you.
Sure. Next, we'll be moving on to our presentation. We have a presentation from Sterling Pritchard. I welcome Ms. Emily.
Thank you so much. Yeah, just a few minutes, Ms. Emily. I'll get your slides on the screen. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all so much for having me. My name is Emily Holmes. I'm with Sterling Seacrest Pritchard. As you can see, I'm not Cindy Robinette. She is out traveling for business today, so has asked that I stand in her place to present the marine insurance renewal to you all.
Bobby Lockett.
Let's go ahead and
Join the meeting.
it works. Would you mind switching slides for me? Thank you so much. So what does CAT's marine insurance actually cover? So there are two main parts to CAT's marine insurance. So first there's protection and indemnity liability, and then there's also hull coverage / physical damage. Protection and indemnity covers when any passengers or crew members are injured, or if there's any litigious type of liability situation on any of the vessels, docks, or gangways. For the hull and physical damage, it is just like it covers if there is an accident and any of those vessels are needing to be repaired or replaced up to the insured value. So I listed kind of all of the vessels that CAT has, as well as the insured value that they are insured for, as well as the passenger load, which showcases the max amount of passengers that are allowed to be on each of those vessels. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about CAT's loss history and what we've experienced in the past. So as you can see, for the past 5 years, CAT has had a really great loss history and has no claims above that $25,000 deductible. But as you can see, for the previous years, 2016 and 2015, there were some really large losses and multiple claimants involved. So overall, CAT has had fairly good loss history for the past 5 years, but overall has a very large loss ratio. But I also wanted to point out, you can see a little bit of a jump in premium from the 20 to 21 policy period, and that is primarily due to the purchase of the $10 million excess P&I limit that CAT elected to purchase during that year. So next slide, please. So I wanted to showcase our marketing summary. So Atlantic Specialty was able to offer a renewal for both the primary hull and primary protection and indemnity insurance. So hull, they were able to quote with a 2% increase in premium. And then for the protection and indemnity, a 5.1% increase. We were very pleased with this renewal, as in the market, we're seeing a 10 to 15% increase in these primary limits. So we were very pleased with this renewal. Additionally, I want to add that they were unable to quote the excess liability, so the $10 million limit in addition to the primary. And this is because of capacity restrictions across the market. So we're seeing a lot of, well, first of all, there's very few insurance carriers that want to quote marine insurance. And of those, so many of them are decreasing their capacity. So they're not extending these large $10 million limits. They're trying to be very choosy based on loss history, incredibly large verdicts in the state of Georgia, and things of that nature. So we were able to put together one policy that has 4 insurers sharing in the loss and in the limits. So those are those 4 insurance carriers underneath Atlantic Specialty. They are sharing at 25% in the loss and in the limits. And they quoted that one policy of $10 million in limits for an additional premium of 7.5%. And like I said, this is really based on CAT's overall loss ratio, market conditions, and then insurers being very picky about wanting to extend large limits. Next slide, please. So I wanted to showcase the premium comparison between last year and this year to kind of give you an idea of the difference in changes. So it's a little bit hidden right there, but the whole coverage was quoted with an additional premium of 2%. Primary P&I coverage was quoted with an additional increase of 5.1%. And then excess P&I, that $10 million limit, was quoted with a 7.5% increase in premium. So overall, the increase went from 189,000 to 199,000, which is a total of 5.21% increase. There were no changes in any terms and conditions, so we really believe that this is a very favorable renewal for CAT, and we would definitely recommend CAT moving forward with this. As I said, we're seeing a lot of increases of about 10 to 15%. So 5.21, we're very, very pleased with. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate being able to present to you all. Are there any questions? Any questions? Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We're moving on to number 4, consent action items. We'll get a motion and a second.
Second.
Thank you. Director Emerson?
Here. Yes.
Thank you. Director Odell?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Stone? She's out of the room. Director Lockett? Okay, thank you, Director Lockett. We're marking you for yes. Director Adams? Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett? I'll come back to Director Leggett. Director Taylor?
Yes.
Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Director Leggett? Not present at this time. And Chairman, what did Director Leggett and Director Stone vote? Motion passed.
Chairman, may I ask one question about number 7?
Yes.
Is that I think that on the executive, when you talk about executive committee members, I think you in one place, Dr. O'Halloran name was removed. In that case, it was not removed. So I said you need to double check. I know it's still in draft form, so that's just one thing I want to point out.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Do we have any more questions or comments on any of the consent action items? All right. Moving on to our individual action item. I want to get a motion in a second to go into number 1 with IFB insurance.
Okay. Second.
Second.
I'll second that.
And of course, open for discussion, Chairman. Okay.
Do we have any discussion on, number one, the IFB insurance?
So kind of the next step is that,
Yes.
just IFB, we've got the plans, now we're sending them out. Somebody's gonna say, I want to build this boat, and it's gonna cost this much. And then we've got a budget, we can't go over for how much that's gonna cost. So we're trying to get 2 boats, and they'll float away.
That's correct, Director and Mr. You recall that during the month of December, the board of directors approved the issuance of the contract
For the
with
plans, right?
exactly, to work with CAD on scope of work, it was the engineering services firm to work with us on the manufacture of these 2. And in March of 2022, the contract was amended to change from diesel powered to hydrogen diesel as a part of our overall agreement. We have received the completed and approved scope of services for the manufacture of those, the plans. And we are requesting the authorization to issue an invitation to bid to procure the manufacturing now of those 2 very much needed ferry vessels. The project manager will be the engineers that are the naval engineers that are already on board, as well as our own staff. And this project is funded with an FTA grant at 80% and local match from our sponsor.
I'd like to ask a question or make a point. I thought that the scope was well done. There's a whole lot of pages, a whole lot of pictures. Everything looks lovely. I had a question. When I see red, I think about deficits. And when I looked on page 96, when talk about the plant load analysis, I don't know if anybody from Marine is with us. Does that mean that we may have some issues there, or that's just a color they use in their overall presentation or scope and sequence?
Director Robinson, we will confirm that for you, but as I read it, it appears that they just use red to indicate their final totals in various ways throughout the reporting that they gave, but we will reconfirm that for you. I'm unaware, though, of any issues that exist in the design and the plans and the engineering services. John, our Marine Services Manager, John Allen, has gone over these and is very pleased with where we are. So if there'd been an issue that would have been raised, and the way I'm reading this, it looks like they just use red as a part of how they indicated totals or finals.
That it only drew my attention because it was your electrical load and those kind of things. So I want to make sure that we were all right there. And I think to Mr. Director Edminster's point, my question was more about the cost and whether or not it would be specific to how much money we can spend, or is there any leeway? When I look at the scope and sequence, how in-depth it is, and if we're going to be comparing apples to apples, is there any wiggle room for these people who are gonna bid on this?
Dr. Robinson, of course, we don't know what the actual cost of the manufacturer will be until we get the bids in. What we have budgeted is the 2.5 million
Right.
FTA dollars and SPLOST 640,000 as the local match. With the prices of everything going up, we do anticipate it will be no surprise if the cost to manufacture is more than budget. Because of the condition of the ferry fleet, we have to be prepared to move forward and absorb whatever the cost of it is.
Right, and that's pretty much what I'm asking, is that are we prepared? Because things are going up on a regular basis, and based on what we said we've set aside for these things to happen, are we in a financial position to handle any upswing?
We are prepared, and this is a great example as to why an operating fund contingency is so very important for when issues and circumstances such as this come up. We have something, financial resources to fall back on.
That's my only 2 concerns or points that I want to bring out.
I have Director Adams that had his hand up, and then I have Director Stones in that.
Thank you, sir. My question is, these are replacing the current,
Yes,
they're not being additional. We're gonna retire current.
we are, sir. What we're planning to do right now, and I think we reported this to you in some of the snapshot reports on Friday, is the plan is this will be the first 2 replacement ferries that we put into service, and 2 ferries will come out of service at that point. We also got the earmark for another ferry, and then we're going after grants that you previously approved that'll be going forward September the 6th. I think it's the submission date for those. That'll be the final replacements +1, so that we can grow our service, and we also have redundancy and resiliency in terms of a backup, if you will, fleet. But we are also working on a planning committee that will help to determine what should be the course, not only the federal requirements we have for retiring those vehicles, but there's a historical context to the ferries. They mean a lot to the community. And so how is that going to move forward in terms of what happens to them next once they are retired? And then what will be the naming protocols for the new ones? So where all of that process is in place.
I have Vice Chair Stone.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm sorry I had to take the call out in the hall due to windows being replaced in my house. With the new boats that we will acquire, is there a chance, because of the age of the current vessels, that we could see a decrease in the insurance going forward?
Potentially, it'll definitely be up to the underwriters and how they value those boats, especially based on if they're more expensive than the current boats that we have, then the insured value will be higher. So therefore, there might not be as much of a decrease as you might be expecting. It's definitely based on the value, so it's a potential, but I don't want to make any promises.
So it's catch-22.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, I know that all insurance quotes pretty much across the board, whether it's homes, vehicles, especially with places like Allstate, have gone through the roof. So, I mean, these quotes are not unreasonable. I was just hoping that, I know that some of the causes for the increase is replacement value and the cost of supplies and what have you, but I was sort of hoping that if you got a newer fleet and therefore less likely problems, that perhaps we might enjoy a little bit of a.
And we will definitely negotiate on CAT's behalf to hopefully receive a decrease, but with the value of the vessels being higher than previous, it's going to be up to underwriters what they decide. So we will definitely keep you posted.
Thank you.
I got that already.
I think these boats represent a departure from the ferries that we are using, which is somewhat sad. The ones that we have are so elegant, but they're also probably really, really heavy, very fuel consumption heavy. It'll be interesting to see how much we save on fuel with these new ones, but they're definitely not. It'll be sad to see some of these go. So.
I think the fuel consumption point that you make is a great one, because I do think that's a place where we really could see some substantive savings. And then I think the other part of it is with the hybrid component of the new ferries, there's also an environmental value that we're going to accrue that we need to measure and be able to report out to you and to the public on, that I think is going to be very important. So.
What happens to the old ferries?
Well, that's what we've worked on. We've assembled a steering committee. I think I reported out on it in the last week's snapshot. Of who all might be on that. We're looking at both folks that are historical, the pilotage commission, and so forth. I think there's about 5 different organizations with interests that we're going to ask, plus a board member, to serve on that will work through what there's federal requirements that we will have to follow and observe in retiring those vehicles. But we will follow those, also work through the local value, so to speak, the local meaning, and then also work on the naming of the new vessels as they come online.
Great.
Got a 2-part question myself. How long do we have the current vessels that we have?
Do you know, Mr. Dennis?
How long have we had?
How long is the last?
How long have we had, sir?
Wow. It's quite question, I don't know the exact year.
2000 to 2004.
Were they purchased with the development purchasing?
I think we'll have, I will get a history of the ferries and we will get that out.
Second
And you have
part,
that information.
how long, is the life expectancy on these?
On the new ones, do you know that? I have not seen that. We will get that information for you as well. Those are great questions, Chairman, and we will get that for you also. All right.
Do you have any more questions or comments on, consent action item
No, not on this one, but I forgot. to
on
ask.
individual action?
We don't have the schedule attachment to the grant application. And for the, are we supposed to have an attachment
For which item?
for the grant application and for the services? Number 4, consent item. And 6.
RFP issuance, general planning on call services.
Yeah.
Okay. Scope of services.
Yeah, we trying.
And number 6, grant application submissions for 5339C and 5307H.
Don't we usually get an attachment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll look for that and get that out to you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman,
Yes.
is it okay if we're kind of back up on the consent action? I've got a question on the meeting about the Route 28, the recent public meeting. If I'm out of line, that's fine. But how did that?
There was there were a lot of people there, and as I reported to you all in Snapshot also last week, a lot of people there, and it seemed like their comments were actually largely directed to overall matters rather than specifics of 28 or some of the other things that we were there to discuss. I would say it was a very lively meeting as it was reported to me. That was also the same day as our media event related to the new electric bus grant. And so I was not able to make it to that public meeting, but I understand it was very lively, well attended, but that the large bulk of the questions were just about general service concerns. And so one of the things that I'm thinking through right now is how we restructure some of our next public outreach to allow for more opportunity for that kind of general engagement around general service concerns, because it's very important. I think that, along with the initiative that the chairman is starting with the board in terms of interfacing with the service and reporting back things to IssueC, those are the kind of critical things that really will help us improve overall versus just specific route improvements.
Well, it kind of seems like the takeaway from that is that people want to tell us a lot of things, and maybe creating some avenues for them to do that could be helpful for all of us to figure out how to do.
I think, like I said, I've given some thought. As a matter of fact, I had some brainstorming yesterday with regard to what that next meeting or series of meetings would look like to do exactly that. So,
Keep me posted if you can.
absolutely.
I'd like to make those felt free.
Very glad.
Do we need to take a vote on individual action item?
Yes, sir. We're closing the board for discussion. I'll do a roll call vote. Director Emerson,
Yes.
Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Lockett. Director Lockett.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson. Yes. Director Leggett. Director Leggett. Director Taylor,
Yes.
Chairman Cody,
Yes,
Chairman without Director Leggett's vote recorded, motion passed.
thank you. All right, moving on to the contract award to Thunderbolt Marine for Julia Road Rehab. I want to get a motion in a second.
And are you open for discussion?
Yes.
I have two questions, if I may.
Yes. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, my question is, how long, once Thunderbolt starts to work on the vessel, how long will it be out of service? And how will that impact our ability to deliver service to our customers?
So 2 to 3 months, Director Robinson, is what John is, Mr. Allen, our Marine Services Manager, says he is expecting on this one.
And I guess this is just as good a time as any because summer is kind of ending and maybe the need won't be great. I think that one holds like 86 passengers, I believe. That's one of our small, right?
Yes.
So it shouldn't have a major impact on our ability to deliver services, I wouldn't think. Is that correct?
Probably not, and this is also one of the ones that has had extensive issues that have put it out of service anyway. So I mean, it's just a requirement that we've got to figure out a way to manage, the demand during this period of time. And I think your comment, Director Robinson, about the timing and getting kind of into the season makes this an optimum time to get this done. But I think that just the nature of the condition of the vessel is going to require it regardless.
And I looked at the 3 bids, but I didn't see where Stephen Towing actually gave us a quote. They listed the things that would be done, but did they actually give us put a dollar value to their quote? Look, that says to be announced or to be determined. Because Savannah Yacht was $271,000 and Thunderbolt was $246,000, but I didn't see an actual figure for Stephen Towing.
They based it on rates, they just listed the rates, hourly rates.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of kicked them out of the ballpark, huh?
Yes, it did.
Right. So based on that, Thunderbolt was the lowest. I'm good.
Any more questions, comments? All right, we're gonna move on to the vote.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Cody. Chairman, Director Emerson,
Yes.
Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Lockett. Yes, thank you. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett, Director Taylor,
Yes.
Chairman Cody,
Yes,
Chairman without the recording of Director Leggett's vote, motion passed.
thank you. As we're gonna move on to the executive director's report, at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to our CEO, Mr. Muscle.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's great to see you all here today, board members, and we're glad to have the public with us as well. For my report, I want to include a few key things that we have been reporting to you for the last several weeks, accomplishments and things that are also upcoming. We are our finalist for the COO position. We had one of our candidates in here this past week, another will be with us next week. So we are moving forward, concluding that process, and are looking forward to, we have great candidates and we're looking forward to that new addition to our team. Our new HR manager starts September the 6th. We also, and I know Chairman Cody is going to mention this, we are working on next week sending information out to all of you regarding Chairman Cody's customer experience initiative and your participation in that. So you'll be given a little more information, background information, and also a rating form to use so that we can have some consistency across the input that we'll be receiving from you, and we'll be able then to compare in a way that, and also sort of have a cumulative assessment of what you see and experience in engaging in our system. We have a meeting this week that I think is going to be actually this afternoon, and I think it's going to be extremely helpful, working with the city of Savannah on development coordination, so that the opportunities, we've talked a lot about the future transit-oriented development, but there's smaller opportunities that are just as meaningful just to be sure that we're at the table when site plan reviews are occurring, so that the need for a stop, the need for ADA compliance, accessibility, shelters, lighting, all those kinds of things, that we can incorporate that into those decisions that are being made at that development individual level. So we're very excited about that meeting. I know everyone was excited last week with the electric bus grant announcement, very exciting. And we've got some really some upcoming things with, whether it's with our master transit plan, some of the things that we're doing in our safety program, that I think the board is going to be very pleased with our performance and progress, and the direction that we are looking at. So I want to thank you all for that. I also don't want to steal Ms. Cutter's thunder at all, because she has done such a phenomenal job with this, but I cannot begin to tell you how proud we are to present the budget book to you today. And I know she's going to be doing that under her finance report, but Ms. Cutter, CFO Cutter, and her team, and our entire team has made contributions to this. You're going to see not only a really strong reflection of the budget that you all led as our board to such a successful conclusion this year, the reserves, but you're going to see the performance measures. You're going to see the description of how we're going to do what we're going to do, that I think is really important. And this budget book is going to be a great tool for all of us. But we're very proud of it. I want to congratulate Ms. Cutter and her team and all of us for this, because this was built upon hard work of this board in terms of putting it together. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dooms for our service delivery and safety update.
Morning, Chairman, Board of Directors, each of you that are present, those of you who are listening in on today. I'd like to do our presentation for our service delivery. Your service delivery packet was included in your board report. Next slide, please. Our fixed route on-time performance. In July is the beginning of our fiscal FY23. So our comparison will be this month compared to a year ago. So our ridership, our on-time performance is slightly down compared to this time last year, and it is currently below our target of 70%. Next slide. Our fixed route ridership, it is up compared to this time last year. Next slide. Our paratransit on-time performance is slightly down compared to this time last year, and it also is currently below our target of 93%. Our top 5 performers, each of them were above 98%. Teresa Williams, Tiffany Grubbs, Charles Robinson, Nicole Lloyd, and Altriana Warren. Next slide. Our paratransit ridership is down compared to this time a year ago as well. Our CAT mobility reservation form, it is up from a year ago. We had 24 compared to 20 last year this time. Our water ferry ridership, it is up from a year ago, over 64,000 riders compared to last year. This time, just slightly under 63,000. Next slide. Our maintenance, our means distance between vehicle failure, it is slightly down from a year ago, but it is well above our target of 12,000. Next slide, our mobility service call. Here you see that we have quite a big jump compared to last year this time. We've had challenges with staffing shortage. The good news is that we recently hired 2 employees, and I believe that we have room for another employee to hire in the call center. In addition to that, we had an increase of call outs last month, the month of July as well. So all those contributed to a longer wait process because we had less individuals able to handle the call volume. You can see on our next. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
How many people are answering the phones at any given time?
At any given time, I don't have the exact number, but I can tell you based on the number that we have, I think the maximum we have on any given day is about 6
And so would this represent like, that's a lot. I'm glad to hear it's getting better, but would that represent like, almost like half, close to half of people on average being out at some given time?
That's correct. That's exactly right. In some cases, it may have been more based on call outs. And so the next slide will show you the number of call volumes. The incoming call volume hasn't changed that much compared. So you still have quite a bit of incoming calls, but it also adds to the delay as well.
And then another question, but what are people are calling about? What are people calling about?
Well, the calls average, they're all over the place. They're from service delivery, what time a bus is coming, what time my ride is coming from, calls to contact someone in the agency, incoming calls about our service or to speak to someone, an employee or representative or human resource. So they're all kind of calls, but majority of these calls, my understanding, are service related.
So I would call up and ask, when is the bus to be here? Where, how do I get from here to there?
That's correct. On a fixed route side, and for the paratransit, it is when will my bus arrive, or my bus hasn't showed up. And so you get those type of calls. And you also get with the paratransit, even though we have the robo and automatic system, you have a majority of many of our clients who just are so used to hearing that voice says, yes, your bus is on the way, or yes, your bus is outside. So in spite of what we have in place, the calls can come in.
And, oh God, what's this class? Yeah, so paratransit and cap mobility calls are also included in these.
That's correct. Yes, sir. And in addition to that, our top 3 advocates answer rate, each of them above the 90, 98, almost 90, 99%. Kara Leaks, Ophelia Williams, and Barbara Sanders. Our safety update on our preventable accidents for the month of July. We had 8 preventable accidents, 7 non-preventable accidents. We had 0 preventable incident, and we had 5 non-preventable incidents, 2 workers' comp, and then our drug screen was 12, and our DOT physical were 12. Before I close out there, I also want to give you an update on our CRC service. Again, this contributes to some of our rides and delay. CRC they're still short on their staff, so they only provided 24 trips for us in the month of July. And additional information, there were some corrections that were made to on both our paratransit and our ferry service with the data collection for ridership miles and revenue miles. For the paratransit during the month of August, from the time period of August 2021 through May 2022, there were some adjustments in the vehicle hours, vehicle miles, and vehicle revenue miles that were correct. All those have been corrected and updated by the end of the fiscal year. But for those of you who pay attention to the reports, those corrections were made after you had received those reports. The same applies with our ferry service. We had between the month of March 2022, April 2022, and May 2022, there were some adjustments made there on the service hours and the ridership as well. Those have been corrected, so they've been reflected at the end of the year. And that's my report. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I would just like to say thanks for the transparency on updating the information like that and letting us know. That's very helpful.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
All right, our next report is on planning on system development, and Ashley Goodrich is going to deliver that report today.
In today's planning presentation, we would like to announce that Chatham Area Transit has been awarded APC certification for our automatic passenger counter. Those are on our fixed route buses for the National Transit Database and our annual reporting for the prior year, fiscal year 22 to up to fiscal year 2025. We are excited about this as this will continue to refine our ridership and be able to show our month over month and annual increases. Next slide, please. Chatham Area Transit is also excited to announce that quite recently and quite quickly, the fiscal year 2022 5339C road to new emissions competitive program CAP was awarded $5.4 million in federal share to order 4 battery electric buses with electric infrastructure. This is a matching 80-20 SPOS grant for $6.8 million total. The electric infrastructure will be a total of a $1.5 million investment for Savannah Chatham County. Next slide, please. Our CAT ridership in July, by route, we have seen month and annual increases in the Route 14 Abercorn at 17.3. This is starting to meet our board of directors key performance indicator of 18 as prior to March of 2020 of the COVID pandemic. Our cost per passenger is coming down to $11.65, and that's overall of all 4 route services. Several of our routes are holding steady, such as the Route 27 Waters, the Route 25 Martin Luther King, and the Route 3 B Augusta Avenue, and the Route 11 Kenmore. Next slide, please. Sure.
On the, you go back to the last slide, on the 7 downtown, 14.8, is that correct?
So with the 7 downtown, if you look at what it's doing now, it is somewhere between 3 passengers per hour and 5 passengers per hour over the last 6 months. CAT staff last year, we implemented the DOT back into service in really at the end of June of 2021. So that June number was just a partial of a month. And July really was the first full month that that route was back in service. What we have seen over the past year is that it started out at a very, very high, almost a great ridership, and then it's just trickled down and decreased steadily.
The downtown.
The downtown specific route. When we get to the DOT expansion and sort of a redesign of the downtown route that's been discussed in several of the public meetings this past year, is that we are adding more bus stops to the downtown route specifically, and we are going back to a little bit of what the route was prior to COVID, prior to the Eastern Wharf extension. And that's to simplify the route a little bit so that folks can find it downtown, but then also we're going to have more stops so that people can access it better.
I just can't recall a time when the downtown had a higher ridership, even close ridership to the Forsyth.
So the Forsyth right now is the highest performing route in our system. If you notice in our system hours by percentage, both of the downtown shuttle routes are each 6% of the total system service. This is outperforming the 14 Abercorn, which is over 20% of our overall system service and fixed route. Several of our routes maybe that are kind of holding steady, such as the Route 29 Gwinnett at 7.0, is a smaller route with only 4% of that system service. To continue for the Garden City update, we have been working in conjunction with the City of Garden City with an intergovernmental agreement in order to provide 6 new super stops, which will be installed once we get an intergovernmental agreement in place and we work through the right-of-way authorities for the improvements and design of what those super stops will look like. Garden City section that we're focusing on, as you may know, is State Route 21. It's about a 1.7 mile section nearby the Groves High School and the new construction of the Groves High School.
More details on where that is in progress right now is we're working really closely with the city manager. We've already provided a draft IGA to Garden City that's in their court that they're reviewing now. We've also provided cost estimates for the facilities and service, both operations and capital, which they are also working through their budget process on. I want to give a shout out to Mike Backer and to our legal team. They've done a tremendous job in helping prepare us on both the working through the local government issues there, but also the required agreements and so forth. We are also, I know that Chairman mentioned to me earlier in the meeting, we've got a new mayor coming in Garden City first part of September. And so we're going to be reaching out to set up a meeting just with the city manager to go over that with him. And Billy Sedgwick, who is another member of our planning staff, will also be working and leading on this effort as a part of system development.
So Superstop is actually something that CAT had in our system for several years. It might be something that sounds familiar, but you may be unfamiliar with. And that is where at a prior moment of CAT, when we last were working on amenities and we were installing significant amounts of improvements to our bus stops and shelters around our system. Superstop is usually a focal point of our system, whether it is a transfer point between multiple routes, or it has a significant location or landmark destination. When we start talking about what we are going to be providing for Garden City as part of this amenities improvement, is that we are looking at a full suite of what our amenities truly is, and that is our shelters, our trash cans, our benches, and ADA accessibility. So
we're doing summer on this as well. And the other thing to mention, I forgot to mention, is that Garden City is also in coordination with GDOT on the right of way needed to accomplish this as well, the right of way agreements and just right of way needed to accomplish this as well.
What will the solar power?
Why?
So a solar component to each of the shelters is underneath the awning, and it will power them and keep them on at night. So it's very similar to what's out front here at Cap Central. To talk about our ferry grants, we have several items of notice for this month. Our fiscal year 2022 ferry boat formula funds have arrived from FHWA. This is part of the infrastructure law and the IIJA, and we have been awarded nearly twice the normal amount of an annual fund for a ferry at a total of $364,562, and that is the federal portion of the 80/20 match. We currently have the competitive ferry grant application underway by planning staff. There are two applications for this year that is a joint notice of opportunity. One is the competitive passenger ferry program, and the second is a pilot low to no emissions ferry program. Each of the competitive applications have awards of upwards to 35 to 40 million in each category.
Recall on this, what we're focused on is the additional ferries that we need and additional resiliency in our ramp and dock infrastructure. So we are going to request 900,000 in local match for 2 more ferry vessels. We want to order 2 more hybrid ferry boats to continue our fleet replacement and future expansion. We are also requesting $600,000 in local match. This would be an 80/20 match as well for our vulnerable dock infrastructure. Recent hazards over the past summer have created need uniquely for us on the Savannah River. And we are looking for system-wide infrastructure upgrades to handle some of the deterioration that has occurred in our dock system. And then finally, to speak about the Route 28 equity analysis, we had a public meeting last week on August 17th. The Route 28 service will be expanded back to 1 hour service frequency.
This will be the return of the block 2802 for 2 peak vehicles daily. This will accommodate the Waters corridor by bringing frequency back to almost 30 minutes per both the Route 27 waters and the Route 28 waters. And it is a positive impact to the population within a quarter mile of the route corridor, as the positive increase does not have any adverse or disparate impacts. And that will conclude the planning presentation for today.
One other thing I would mention related is, again, a shout out to both Squire Patton Boggs and Mr. Becker on the work that we're doing right now to, you know, we've had discussions about our system development planning future. Both the notion that fixed route and micro transit, how those things are going to be a part of the system moving forward. Of course, paratransit is an essential service in the community. Our specialty services of ferries and ride. And then lastly, this notion around commuter express. There's so much economic activity, whether that's Amazon in Fort Wentworth or Hyundai in Bryan County. There's so much of that kind of activity around, and we have a lot of work going on behind the scenes right now with the support of both Mr. Backer and Squire Patton Boggs to work with the state and others to figure out exactly what is that potential for us and what is that right fit for us. But I think it is a very promising part of our future in terms of how it grows our system, it grows in a smart, efficient, effective way, and actually enhances the services for everyone when we grow that way. So just wanted to be sure I mentioned that. All right, and with that, we're going to go to our last report, CFO Ms. Cutter.
Good morning again, everyone. I will be presenting an overview of the financials for the month of July. The financials reflected revenues are a little ahead of expenses. And of course, we all know and understand that expenses are down primarily due to vacancies, in addition to still awaiting the ratification of the union contract, wherein the union employees will also receive pay increases attributed to that. Revenues exceeds expenditure for the month, almost, well, by $693,430. Our revenue by category, no surprises here. The special district transit tax is the main source of revenue that Chatham Area Transit receives to cover operating expenses, followed by funding that we receive from Chatham County to provide paratransit services. Our expenses for category, the major amount goes to salaries and wages and employee benefits. Upon ratification of the union agreement, we will be bringing before the board a component of that agreement was that CAT would now pick up an additional 5% of the employee's medical insurance premium. So that will be coming back from the board to reflect what impact that would be. As we committed to employees, in order to remain competitive, we are looking at our salary and benefits package. So this is another step in that direction. Transit tax for the month that came in was 1.1 million. The actual paratransit dollars that came in was 398,438. As you see, the per occupied room fees are up, which is good. It definitely helps our revenue. And at the end of July, the their operating cash balance was $7.9 million. In the month of September, we will be coming back with a recommendation to move some monies from operating into an investment account in compliance with the operating reserve fund policy. This kind of summarizes the ups and downs of the finances for July. Passenger fares are up above budget. Agency revenue up above budget. The transit tax up above budget. Grant revenue a little below budget. The grant money hadn't come in yet, but it will. And the other category, interest, rental, that's a little above budget as well. On the expense side, the salaries and wages, they are below budget. As I said, because of vacancies, in addition to the costs associated with union negotiations, hasn't hit the budget as of yet. Our supplies and materials are below budget. Fuel is a little above budget. That's to be expected, and we hope that that will level out some. And utilities are below budget for the month of July as well. Yes, sir.
I like this slide.
You like that slide?
It's helpful.
Right. Okay, the actual that came in for July, as I said, the 7.9 million. And the remainder, this is what the projections look like. You see that those peaks and those valleys. During the valleys, we rely on operating efficiencies through savings, and our reserve is there in the event that that valley dips a little lower than anticipated. We have something to carry the agency on without a hardship. What's coming, we are still waiting on the full scope management review report from the FTA. It has not been received as of yet, but expected any day. The annual financial audit is in progress. The auditors are on site today. And the union agreement budget impact, there will be impact, as I mentioned previously, with CAT picking up 75% of the premium cost in comparison to 70%. And of course, the wage increase associated with the union ratification.
I'd mention related to that, Mr. Dennis and I met earlier this week with union leadership, and we are very close and expect to have an announcement probably next week. Correct, Mr. Dennis? Report back to you on the conclusion of that matter. So we're glad to be forward in partnership with you.
And the last is not on the slide, but I just wanted to mention, as we apply for grants, we are continuously working with our community partners to secure local match dollars. That's just very important for the grant process. If most of you recall, through SPLOST, Chatham Area Transit asked for 20 million and we received 10 million. And of course, that 10 million is really targeted for fleet replacements. And as we expand the electric bus fleet, that SPLOST money is really there for that purpose, and the hybrid buses and the diesel buses. So if we could get the board support in building these community partnerships, so as we expand our services, we have that local financial support to make CAT what it needs to be in order to serve the public. And that's all I have. If you will, please take some time to go through the budget book. It's all about the policy that the board has set in guiding Chatham Area Transit, putting the money where the mouth is. Thank you.
I think, if there are any other, questions or comments, I'll turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you. Thank you and staff for great information on what's going on, keeping the board informed of all the activities. It's much appreciated. We move on to old new business. Do we have any old new business?
I have just a question.
Yes.
Where are we with the first mile, last mile?
We are still working through both the insurance liability and legal process, but we're getting closer with Uber Lyft. We expect to be able to start that in the fall. I think what we reported to you maybe previously was November. I believe that's correct. And then I think the other part of that that's going to be really important is how we really begin to move into microtransit and microtransit zones. And one of the things that we're doing with the master transit plan that'll be a little different is what you're seeing in a lot of transit systems around the country is that they are looking at it from the perspective of sort of a pilot here and a pilot there in terms of the microtransit zones, which is in effect provides a lot of this first mile, last mile connectivity. We're going to do that differently. We've challenged our team to look at it from a how do we take our fixed route and make stronger fixed routes by making sure that we have this kind of supportive microtransit zones throughout the system that make those more productive and work more effectively, and make our investments in fixed route keener rather than broader, and then use the microtransit zones as a way to really penetrate deeper into the community, increase our equity, increase our reach, and operate more efficiently, more effectively. So we've got two things going on. One, we've got the Uber Lyft first mile, last mile that we've talked to you about, or the Uber in the past that I think will come online, I think November. But then we've also got this more expansive way of looking at it from a system level that is going to be really important.
I just feel like if we could get people from the more remote parts of Chatham County to a main line, not only could it save us a lot of money in the long run for running buses where you only have 3 to 4 people, every 6 hours. And then it would also increase the ridership on the main lines or the more centrally located lines. So, I mean, to me, it's just something we really, really need to look at. Chatham County geographically is a very large county. And there's no way, in my honest opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, a bus system our size can service geographically a county the size of ours with the resources that we have. And so we've got to start thinking about how to combine and get people where they need to be.
No, we completely agree with you, Director Stone, and that's why we didn't want to go sort of a half step, if you will, but we really wanted to expand in this master transit plan, which is only going to take a year. We said we want this very robust evaluation of the fixed route, but the micro transit zones that are throughout the county, not a pilot here or a demo there, but something that really looks comprehensively and figures out how do we reach all the county. How do we exactly the kind of connectivity things and the operational efficiency and effectiveness matters that you just described. We're on exactly the same page. And I think you're going to be really pleased with what's going to come out of that and how we can prioritize the implementation of it to get some really early wins.
Microtransit will include smaller buses.
Yes, ma'am.
Buses and vans, right?
Yeah, it typically is the smaller buses. It kind of depends on what the microtransit zone looks like and what it's serving, but yes.
And are we going to talk to employers like Gulfstream and the Tanger outlets?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because they've shown interest in the past and have even offered to allocate funds to have a service. Because right now, the people that work with Gulfstream that ride the bus, get off at the airport, and then they walk to Gulfstream.
Right. And we've met with Gulfstream already, and we are in conversations about what that would look like. And they're part of the stakeholder committee, the comprehensive community-wide stakeholder committee. They're one of the business organizations represented on that for the master transit plan.
I got a director.
Yes,
Adams.
thank you, sir. Is there any update on the electric buses? They're taking offline.
Oh,
Last year.
so they are still out of service right now because of the recall issue. And I'll be honest with you, Director Adams, we've been assured by the manufacturer that we could probably still be running. But in an abundance of caution, the last thing we need is to be running and that coolant issue arise and a bus catch fire. And so we've chosen to be more conservative in our approach, and they're still sitting on guard. We expect that we're probably looking at about another 2 to 3 week delay in getting them back in service before that's resolved. Thank you for that question.
Have any more questions or comments?
All right,
Before we adjourn, first of all, I want to say, we as a board do plan to help with fixed route with a new initiative that I want to put out, which we'll be calling, and I'm piggybacking off of what Ms. Massimo was talking about earlier. We look like we calling it the Customer Experience Ad Hoc Committee. And what's that going to consist of is we got Director Taylor that's going to take lead on this as chair of this committee. What we plan to do is meet up at least three times before December the 22nd. Looking at taking this initiative from September 1st through December 31st. What we're looking to get out of this is we want to evaluate our rider experience, our safety, our cleanliness, our bus stop amenities, our origination and destination points. We want to also do our timeliness, our convenience of bus stops, bus condition evaluation, and the guest experience, which Mr. Evans brought up when we first spoke on it. You can bring a guest to ride along. And what this is going to do, we working side by side with the CEO. She's on top of things. We spoke on it yesterday. And what we're going to do is Beverly's working on the paperwork so everybody can be on the same page with your experience and what you see when you ride the bus. And that way, what we're going to do is report everything back. Everything will go back to the CEO. And whatever improvements that we can make, whatever improvements that we see, that'll put all of us as board members on the same page for what's going on to transit, our transit. And with this, I think that our CEO can take this information and I'm sure she's gonna enforce whatever we can to make our ride share better and improve upon our situation. We are right now glad that this pandemic is pretty much behind us, so to speak, which it still exists, but we are still working through it as we have for the last few years as Americans. So what we're gonna do is we wanna improve upon our transit like we originally talked at the very beginning about improving upon Chatham area transit. It's definitely not gonna help. It's not gonna hurt for the board to be pushing behind the scenes, working side by side with the CEO and her staff, and which they're doing a phenomenal job of getting us to that point. Like I stressed to her earlier, it's not gonna take us that long to get. You know, we got great leadership in place. We got great pieces to the puzzle in place. We got great staff that the CEO is overseeing, and we got a great board that's coming together as one. And once we can do this, come together as a unit, I think Chatham Area Transit will be one of the best transit agencies in the region, in the world, is what we're looking for. We're gonna shoot for it, let's shoot for the top. So we're gonna start this and we're gonna implement everything on here. We're trying to get everything started by September 1st, like I said. So we'll be sending out more literature on that as we work through. We don't have any questions or comments. I'd like to say we're gonna adjourn this meeting today. I look forward to seeing everybody in the near future. Thank you.
You,
Thank you.
Still